The Joe Gelly Show.
Welcome back, my people. I'm your host, Ida Joe Gelly, and today I'm starting a video series to show you why your cash is losing its purchasing power and to show you places where to put that cash so that it doesn't become worthless. That's right, we're gonna talk about money. Money has made the world go round since back in the era of cavemen, when one clever caveman started using boar's teeth to trade goods with other clans. Well, it could have been antlers or tulips, but let's suppose it was boar's teeth. A caveman could trade something like 5 teeth for 1 cave. Then the next caveman could trade those 5 teeth for 3 spears, and so on. And just like that, boar's teeth became money. Boar's teeth had no intrinsic value other than using money for trading for goods and services. There was essentially no other use for it, unless you use it for something creative like to make a necklace. Kind of like how the Venezuelans used their essentially worthless Bolivar bills to make handbags. But back to the cavemen. It didn't take the cavemen long to realize that if they simply gathered more boar's teeth, they could afford more things. They could exchange that money for more useful stuff. Since money was relatively easy to get, the good stuff started selling fast. So to stop the shortages of caves and spears, sellers increased the prices to where you had to get your hands on a heck ton of teeth to buy what they were selling. The prices of everything ballooned higher and higher. The increase in prices meant the purchasing power of each tooth had fallen. 5 teeth was no longer enough for 1 cave. With money came inflation. The leaders of the clan, those who were the strongest and the most respected, figured out that if they became the only people allowed to issue money, then only they could easily trade it for useful stuff. So the leaders prohibited everyone else from issuing money and began giving out boar's teeth that only they were allowed to collect. Immediately after, the leaders lended teeth to the clan and received caves and spears, food and clothes, basically useful stuff in return. The leaders had become the money masters, the financiers managing large sums of money, and inflation was their tool. But the strong leaders were also very greedy. They had an intense desire for wealth. So they issued more and more money and bought up more spears and more caves. Now there was more money circulating among the clan, which drove up the prices of spears and caves. To illustrate, let's suppose that at the beginning there was 100 teeth in circulation, and you could purchase 1 cave with 5 teeth. Now there was 1,000 teeth in circulation, which drove up the price of 1 cave from 5 teeth to 50 teeth. Any caveman holding on to 5 teeth no longer had the power to buy that nice cave they put off for later. The cavemen stashing their money became poorer and poorer every day and had to get back to work to make up for it. On the other hand, the caveman who owned 1 cave could now trade that 1 cave for 50 teeth. That is 10 times more teeth than they could before the leaders inflated the money supply. So, getting the trend now? Those holding on to money lost purchasing power, and those holding on to assets gained purchasing power. Money had no intrinsic value to begin with and can easily be created, while assets tend to be useful and are hard to obtain. So as we see, the expenditures of the leaders had an effect on the clan's economy. This was government finance in the Stone Age. If the leaders wanted to raise money to purchase something, all they had to do was issue more money. Inflation may have been the oldest way to get payments from people without collecting money from them through taxes. Come to think of it, inflation is essentially an invisible tax, a way to take purchasing power from people without taking money from their pockets. Since the Stone Age, there has been many governments that have issued their own currency and rediscovered simultaneously the magic and sorrows of inflation. That is the ability to make few people very rich and many very poor. and then to have issued so much currency that the economy falls apart. The balance between the production of goods and the consumption of those goods gets interrupted. The prices shoot up so high that buyers can't afford anything, and sellers can't find anyone to sell to. Historically, no currency has lasted forever. Eventually, there is so much money in circulation that the currency becomes so inflated that the only solution is a collapse of that currency and the start of a new one. I'm Ida Jogeli. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one. That's all, folks.
Catch new episodes of The Jogeli Show. Plus, get exclusive content for free only on jogeli.com. Go to jogeli.com and sign up now.